Hey, I want to talk with you about how drumming can program our brains to process through crazy amounts of trauma. I'm Skye Starhawk, and drumming saved my life when I was a teenager. And I've gone on to help teach drumming all over this world. I think over 27 countries now it is. I have to go look at the number. But it's been over 4 million young people. Over 11,500 schools have been using this curriculum to help to process trauma. And it's really a cool thing because you don't even have to know how or why it's working. But I get questions all the time of like, wait, but really how and why does this work? So I'm sitting in my living room and I just thought, why not connect with y'all and explain a little bit of the behind the scenes of how and why this works. So you're about to find out that I'm a super nerd, and I'm really proud of that. So the idea of drumming helping us process trauma, first we have to understand that trauma basically leads to triggers, right? We're all familiar with triggers. Triggers send us into this loop that so many of us want to be free from. I don't know if you're familiar with ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences. If not, I suggest you go check it out. My ACE score is a 9 out of 10, which means it's a very high amount of trauma, and there was a lot that I needed to get out of my body to survive. Now, part of my story that you may know is that I was suicidal as a teen. My dad had already died by suicide. I had a really rough time, and I ended up accidentally giving into peer pressure, which landed me in drumline as a 9th grader in high school. And I'm really glad because it saved my life. So here's how it works. We get into those trauma loops, right? We get into those loops that we want to get out of. We want to stop attracting that kind of person, that kind of situation. Or we want to stop feeling that way all the freaking time, or when we don't expect it. So if you think of a trauma loop, like let's say that we used to experience this, bum, 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 and we're in this loop, and then we experience it again later in life, whether it be later in our teen years or as an adult. Now we don't want to get rid of this loop because it's a part of us, it's a part of our story, it's a part of who we are. So if someone says, just go with the flow, man, bum, 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 we're like, yeah, how? Because it doesn't feel safe. I know this. It doesn't feel good, but I know it, and I know I can count on it. Because even if it means pain is coming, I know how to count on that pain. I know what it feels like. I know I can get out of it. Bum, 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 bum. But they're like, but life would be so much better here. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah. And you're just like, okay, I really want that, and I have no freaking clue how. And I also don't want to lose myself because this self was programmed in my brain to keep me safe in the future. And if I chill out, ba-boom, ba-boom, I'm not going to be ready to protect myself. So what drumming does is it teaches us to put those two loops together and synthesize them. Ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. We get to keep this one, and we get to add the next one. Boom, ba-boom, 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 ba-boom. And it creates a new song. Now, what's cool about that is that when we are trying to learn new patterns from a mental health perspective, it can feel really scary. It can feel traumatic because, like I was just explaining, we're like, no, 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 I'm here to keep myself safe. Like, yay, brain, A+, you're doing the right thing, you're keeping me safe. But then we're like, oh my gosh, this is not sustainable, I'm exhausted, right? If we go through a back door, which is what drumming does, and we create this idea that, hey, I know that through drumming, and of course this is all subconscious, I can take one pattern, two patterns, put them together, and all is well. If we know that, then what happens is our brain, it gets this new information that says, hey, here's a new way of approaching life. And usually it would be like, no, but it says, wait, I've done this before and everything was safe when I was drumming. So it's able to take in that information with a little bit less fear and freak out, right? And so it's really, because I mean, when we learn, we build on the known. So we go from the known to the unknown. And so if we have this unknown thing, it's really scary. But if our brain's like, wait, that's not super unknown because I've already done that in drumming, that's how we get in through the back door and be able to learn these new coping skills to be able to like function as more of the human who we're here to be. So the other thing that drumming helps us do is this like pattern interrupt, because we're talking about those trauma loops, right? So if we've got this pattern of triplet, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going through life and suddenly something happens. We've got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. We're like, no! I needed to feel safe and secure because I grew up not feeling safe and secure in my environment, and I really needed that. And culturally, we were taught not to provide that for our children. So I'm basically like, when it comes to things changing, and so I need things that I can count on to stay steady. And so what drumming does is it says, wait, life isn't always like this scary thing you can't count on. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. Those things get scary, but what drumming says is, hey, there's actually a common thing that you can count on, and it's the beat. There's Tanya. Bum, bum. Tap your finger with me. Bum, bum, bum. Somewhere on your body, so you can feel this. This is the steady beat. And so what drumming teaches us is that even when other things are changing outside of us, we can still stay steady. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Whoa. Whew, I should breathe more often when I do that. So do you see kind of what I'm saying is that beat stays steady? That's what drumming teaches us, is that when everything outside of us is changing, we can still stay steady. It's possible. Now, as kids, we probably didn't learn that. We probably learned that everything is always changing and you don't know what to count on. And what drumming teaches us is I can count on me. And everything else around me can change. And everything's still going to be okay and make a little bit more sense. So that's one of the things that I love about the pattern interrupt, is that those pattern interrupts can happen outside of us and we can stay steady. Now, the other idea of pattern interrupt that I really love about drumming is this thing called a check pattern, where basically you come back and you check yourself. So if you have issues of abandonment, I have issues of abandonment, lots of people do, because like I said, culturally, like we were taught, like don't attach to your kid because you're a good parent if they're independent, which meant that, you know, we had all sorts of anxiety about knowing that we can count on something, you know? So there's a lot of fear and maybe insecurity when it comes to things changing, whether it be our friend circles, even if they're toxic. We're like, but I don't want things to change because I don't know what I can count on. At least I know that I can count on you to not always be super kind to me. And at least I can count on that, because what's even scarier is not knowing what's coming. So this pattern interrupt teaches our brains, hey, you can make a change and always come back. So when we're kids, for example, we need to learn, let's say that we're going to start learning to sleep in our own room or in our own bed or whatever it is. We're going to be in a room where our parents aren't. We need to feel safe and secure that they're always going to come back. So in the beginning, we probably would cry. And over time, as our parents keep showing us that they come back, that time lessens of how much we're crying until finally we're like, it's okay to be left in another room. I know that they will come back. That's part of the developmental process. But when we didn't always know if they'd come back, or if we had a feeling and maybe it made them mad and we didn't know if they still loved us or if they still wanted us or if they would come back, that's really hard. Maybe we had some instability, maybe like a family member died or something, and we're like, I don't know what I can count on. This exercise teaches our brains that there is something we can always come back to, in that same way as the baby with the parent who always comes back so they can finally calm down and feel secure to go to sleep. This helps our nervous system calm down so we can finally feel secure to move forward with new things in life. So here's how it goes. In the beginning, we have 4 chugga-chuggas, like a choo-choo train, right? Chugga-chugga, 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 chugga-chugga. And then we add a little hiccup in there. Chugga-chugga, 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 chugga-chugga. Move the hiccups. Chugga-chugga, 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 chugga-chugga. So it's always changing. Chugga-chugga, 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 chugga-chugga. And when it always changes, we're like, okay, we can count on it that it's going to change, and we can count on it that we're always going to be able to come back to that chugga-chugga. And as our brain starts to feel strong enough and safe enough in that, we can go down to 2 chugga-chuggas. Chugga-chugga, chugga-chugga. And then we get to 1 chugga-chugga. And then we don't have to use chugga-chuggas at all. We can just go out enjoying life. And that is what we can build on cumulatively in drumming. Now, of course, these are more advanced things. So we start with breaths. You know, we play 8 on each hand. Every time we play our right hand, we're breathing. So 8 while we breathe in. While we play our left hand, we hold it. And then 8 breathing out. Hold. repeat that over and over. So we start, really simply, and we can build up to these things. But as we cumulatively build these things, we're building new patterns in our brain. If you create these new like train tracks in your mind, then when it comes to life, those train tracks are already there. They can just kind of piggyback on the drumming ones, and it's going to make sense, instead of just having to default to the original ones that were made when we first experienced trauma, which is how we get into those loops. So drumming is amazing. It really can help us, but what I'm really, really enjoying right now is helping people to apply these kinds of principles to whatever their amazing super thing is that they love doing. Oh my gosh. There's so many things that you could use. And so I'm connecting with other grown-ups right now and helping them to use these principles, apply them to whatever they're doing in a really intentional way, so they can go back out into the world with their bright shining light and teach it to all of these people to help them heal and turn their lights on, so then these people can go out into the world and shine their light, and it's creating a chain reaction of light all around our world, which is what our world really needs right now. So I really hope that you enjoyed kind of getting this behind the scenes understanding of what's in my crazy mind. Or if you've got something magical that you're like, I want to use these principles, Skye, will you help guide me to figure out how to apply these to what I've got going on so that I can really just like change the world? Let's do it. I love working with deeply caring, deeply giving people, because a lot of times when we are that giving person, this is another side note, when we are that like over giving person and we really care a lot, we tend to lose ourselves, and those are the people I love to work with, because it's all about reining it back in, because that's part of our trauma too, right? Is that over giving? And so we kind of work through ourselves and how to heal ourselves through that, so that when we go out in the world, we're also empowering others to do the same for themselves, because we see that for everyone else, right? We want them to take care of themselves, and we got to start by taking care of ourselves first. So if you're like a deeply caring, super giving person who wants to change the world and not lose themselves, let's talk, because that's where all the fun happens. Thank you for being you, and we'll connect again soon.